They say the heart doesn't break all at once, it fractures in quiet increments, under the weight of things unsaid. Mine had been cracking for years before I even noticed. My name is Evelyn. I'm 46, and I've spent the better part of my life on the edge of exhaustion, raising 2 children in a house that always needed something. Repairs. Groceries. Forgiveness. My husband, Clark, died 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and cruel. He was a decent man, the kind that called home every day but never really asked how you were. I grieved for what we had, but mostly for what we never did. We were good at being parents. Not so much at being partners. So I poured everything into our children. Ava, my daughter, is 23 now and recently engaged. She lives across town but drops by often, usually with a bottle of wine and stories about wedding venues and fabric swatches. Then there's Caleb. 20. My son. He still lives at home while attending community college and working part-time at a mechanic's shop. His hands are always stained with grease, and he tracks the scent of motor oil into the kitchen every evening like it's perfume. He was quiet growing up. Never loud or demanding, just observant. I always thought he was more like me, good at listening, terrible at asking for what he wanted. But lately, it's as though he's watching me more. Like he's trying to understand something I haven't said aloud. It started with small gestures. One night, I came home late from my shift at the diner. My feet ached, my back screamed, and I hadn't eaten since noon. I found the kitchen spotless. Dishes done. A pot of soup still warm on the stove. Caleb was at the table, sketching something on a pad. He's always doodling engines and odd inventions like he's solving problems only he understands. You didn't have to, I said, trying to hide how much it meant. He shrugged, not looking up. You shouldn't have to do everything. Later, I caught myself lingering by his door, listening to the scratch of pencil against paper, the low hum of his music. A voice inside me whispered, "This isn't just gratitude. This isn't just kindness." I hushed it. The first time it happened, what I now call the moment I stopped pretending, was a week before Christmas. I'd been crying in the bathroom. Quietly. One of those silent, exhausted cries that sneak up on you when you finally sit still. I thought I'd masked it well until I came out and found Caleb in the hallway, his brows knotted in concern. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I lied. He stepped forward and hugged me. Just a hug. Familiar, familial. But his arms lingered. And I didn't let go. Something in me folded. The days that followed were strange in their gentleness. We moved around each other with a new caution, like dancers learning a rhythm no one had taught them. His compliments became more specific. "That color looks really good on you," he said one morning. "Then, you have this way of moving, like you don't realize everyone watches you." I brushed it off. But inside, a flame caught. The next shift came during a snowstorm. The roads were slick, and Ava called to say she was staying at her fiancé's. I brewed tea and lit candles, trying to enjoy the rare quiet. Caleb came downstairs in a hoodie and socks, his curls still damp from a shower. He joined me on the couch, and we watched old Christmas movies, laughing, teasing, sharing stories we both already knew by heart. At one point, I felt cold and reached for the throw blanket. He took it, wrapped it around us both, and pulled me close. I should have moved. Said something. Anything. But I didn't. I rested my head against his shoulder. And then, he kissed my temple. A small kiss. Light. Gentle. But everything shifted. He didn't say a word. Just kept his arm around me like it was the most natural thing in the world. And for a long, terrible moment, I let myself feel safe. Not as his mother. But as a woman who had been cold for too long. We never spoke of that night. Not the kiss on my temple. Not the way his arm tightened around me as the snow fell quietly outside. We didn't even look at each other when the credits rolled and I rose from the couch on shaking legs, mumbling something about dishes I didn't wash. But silence is its own kind of conversation. The next morning, Caleb was in the kitchen before me, already pouring coffee into my favorite mug. He handed it to me without a word, but his fingers brushed mine and lingered there, deliberate, slow. I couldn't meet his eyes. "Thanks," I said. He nodded. "You sleep okay?" "Yeah." It was a lie. I'd barely slept at all, haunted not by guilt, but by warmth. The terrifying, intoxicating warmth of being held. Of being seen. Of the quiet revelation that I had been lonelier than I'd ever dared admit. I stayed busy that day. Cleaned the attic. Sorted the pantry. Answered texts from Ava about flower arrangements and bridesmaid colors. But all the while, I felt Caleb's presence like heat against my skin. He didn't crowd me. He never did. But his eyes followed me when I passed by, and I felt them, felt him, like a current running just beneath the floorboards. That night, we cooked together. Spaghetti, garlic bread, and the same old red sauce recipe Clark used to claim was good enough. Caleb chopped onions, humming under his breath. I stirred the sauce with shaking hands. He touched my wrist when I reached for the salt. Just lightly. "Careful," he said. "You always overseason when you're distracted." I smiled. "Do I?" "You do," he said, voice low. "It's cute." I froze. That word hung in the air between us. Cute. A boyish word. A word that didn't belong in our kitchen, not in the way he said it. Not in the way it made my heart stutter. He saw it. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I didn't mean." But I stopped him. "It's okay." We didn't talk much after that. We ate quietly, the television filling the silence with canned laughter from some old sitcom. But that night, as I passed by his door to head to bed, he stepped into the hallway. "Mom," he said softly. I turned. He looked like he was trying to hold something back, some storm gathering behind his eyes. "I'm not trying to make this confusing," he said. I don't like watching you fade." That hit me harder than I expected. "Fade?" I echoed. "You smile, but it doesn't reach your eyes anymore. You come home and go straight to bed. You walk like your bones are tired." I laughed, but it came out broken. "That's because I'm old." He stepped closer. "You're not. You're light. You just forgot how to burn." His hand found mine. "Warm." "Sure." I let it stay. He leaned in, too close, not close enough, and pressed his forehead against mine. "We don't have to call it anything," he whispered. "I just don't want to lose you to the silence." And then, God help me, I kissed his cheek. Not because I meant to. Because I couldn't stop myself. His breath caught, but he didn't move. His fingers laced through mine, and we stood there in the hallway, swaying slightly like the house itself was holding its breath. Then I pulled away. "I need sleep," I said, my voice a whisper. He nodded, but he didn't let go of my hand until the very last second. I closed my door behind me and leaned against it, heart racing. I wanted to forget. To rewind. But more than anything, I wanted to go back and do it again. That was the night I stopped lying to myself. This wasn't maternal. This wasn't gratitude. This was something vast and dangerous. This was something that didn't care about names. The days that followed felt like walking through smoke, everything familiar, but veiled. I tried to be normal. Tried to return to our routines. But something between us had shifted, and neither of us could unfeel it. Caleb didn't pull back. If anything, he became more attentive. More careful. He folded my laundry before I could get to it. Cooked breakfast on the mornings I worked early. Left little notes beside my coffee mug, quiet things, like, drive safe today, or, I saw the way you smiled yesterday. Don't stop. And I found myself keeping the notes. One afternoon, while reorganizing the bookshelves in the den, I came across an old photo of Clark and me. We were young. Smiling. Laughing into each other's necks. I stared at it longer than I should have, waiting for the ache to rise. But it didn't. Instead, I thought of Caleb, of the way his voice lowered when he spoke to me, the way his hands settled on the small of my back without thinking. I tucked the photo back into the drawer and walked away. That night, Ava came over. She brought wine, wedding magazines, and her usual whirlwind of conversation. Caleb stayed upstairs. I don't know if he sensed it, or if he simply knew he couldn't hide what flickered in his eyes when we were in the same room. He's different lately, Ava said, flipping through a catalog of centerpieces. I tried to act casual. He's growing up. Maybe, she said, then narrowed her eyes at me. You're different too. My breath caught. How so? She shrugged. I don't know. Softer. Quieter. Like you're holding your breath. I laughed, a little too loudly. Maybe I'm just getting old. But her words followed me like a shadow. After she left, I found Caleb sitting at the top of the stairs, elbows on his knees. She suspects something, he said. She doesn't, I replied quickly. She's just observant. He looked up at me. Should we stop? It was the question I'd been dreading, and needing. Stop what? I asked, though I already knew. He stood and stepped closer. This, whatever we're doing. Whatever this is. I couldn't answer. Because how do you stop something you never gave permission to start? I don't want to lose you, he said. But I don't want to make your life harder, either. You're not, I said. It's not you. It's just, this world wasn't made for feelings like this. But we didn't ask for them, he said, almost a whisper. And he was right. We didn't. But they came anyway. Like the tide. Like the fire beneath the surface that doesn't ask for air, it takes it. The next morning, he kissed my hand before leaving for class. Not a peck. Not an accident. A slow, intentional press of lips against knuckles, and a glance that stayed long after the door closed behind him. I walked into the kitchen and burst into tears. Because I didn't know what I was mourning more, what we were becoming, or the fact that I didn't want it to stop. Winter finally broke in late March. The snow receded from the edges of the lawn like a tide, revealing brown grass and forgotten memories, a glove Caleb lost in December, a cracked ceramic planter Ava gave me for Mother's Day years ago. The world outside was thawing. So was something inside me. I tried to ignore it. Tried to lose myself in work and wedding planning with Ava. I even went out to dinner once with a man from church. A widower. Kind. Polite. He asked questions and smiled often. But when he reached across the table to touch my hand, I felt nothing. No spark. No flutter. Just the absence of what I couldn't name. Caleb was waiting when I came home that night. He stood in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. You looked pretty, he said softly. I didn't feel it, I replied. We stood there, locked in that quiet standoff, until I broke it with a breath. I kissed him goodnight, I said. Caleb's jaw clenched. Did it mean anything? No, I whispered. Not a thing. He exhaled and nodded once. Good. It wasn't possessiveness. It wasn't jealousy. It was relief, raw and honest. That night, as we sat on the couch beneath a thin blanket, he took my hand again. No words. Just a touch. A lifeline. I've been saving for a place, he said suddenly. Not far. A rental. Small. My chest tightened. You're leaving. He looked at me then, and for the first time in weeks, I saw hesitation in his eyes. I thought maybe you'd come with me. It hit me like a wave. You want us to live together. I want us to be somewhere quiet. Somewhere we don't have to explain ourselves. People will talk. Let them. We didn't decide that night. We just sat in silence, listening to the clock tick and the heater groan against the chill. But I knew something had changed. We were no longer circling each other. We were standing on the same side of something wild. 2 weeks later, I quit my job. 3 weeks after that, we moved into a little house on the edge of town. A place with tall windows and creaky floors and a backyard overgrown with lilacs. We told neighbors we were family, which was true. We said we lived together for convenience, which wasn't a lie either. But the truth, the full, complex truth, belonged only to us. Some nights, we still danced around it. Sometimes, he called me by my name instead of Mom, and something in me ached with understanding. Sometimes we touched, lightly, reverently. A hand on a knee. A kiss on the shoulder. A shared breath in the quiet. But we didn't rush it. Because love like this doesn't need speed. It needs space. And we had made our own. A place with no rules. No judgment. Just two souls who had clung to each other through the fire and found, somehow, that what bound them was more than blood. It was recognition. It was home.